Secrets of the C-Suite, the podcast, is for anyone interested in leadership and the wins, losses, and lessons of being an executive. We are two women who have successfully navigated C-Suite roles and are sharing our experiences. We will be bringing on guests to tell their stories and want to spark honest conversation and discussion, which may include swearing and lots of laughs. Join us on this adventure.
Hey, Juliet. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Susan. How are you?
I'm good. It's an early morning and it's fresh and foggy and chilly out, so it's perfect.
I know. We've had a weird summer in Northern California. San Francisco's always weird to people, but I live a little bit north of San Francisco, and it's just not been warm enough for me. Like, we had a heat wave for like 4 days, and it was glorious. And now it's kind of back to gloomy mornings. And I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I think it's really important for me to say this out loud, is I take the weather personally. If it's not the weather I want, and sometimes I want cold, and sometimes I want hot, and sometimes I want rain, and sometimes I don't. And if it's not the thing I want, I take it personally. And it's something I'm working on.
Yeah. I don't know that you need to work on that. Just accept it. It's part of your character and your charm. It's part of your process. Yeah. So anyway, what I realized this morning, while just on the subject of weather, is that I actually never really thought about this, but I really like the San Francisco summer weather because I like to get up and go for a walk, and it's cool out because the marine layer is in, the fog is in. But then I want it to burn off by about 10, and I want it to be beautiful and sunny till about 7:30, 8 o'clock when I go for maybe an after dinner walk. And then it can rain or be cloudy and cold and whatever. So I get good sleep. So it's not too hot to sleep.
Yeah.
So
it's
working
very
for me.
Very specific on your weather. Oh my God.
It's not working for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Juliet, you're getting ready for another school year.
Yes. So I've had a glorious summer. I'm really understanding the cadence of the school year and working in a school, which has been very cool. And the summers are just organically lighter. And it made me realize how important these breaks are, and that it would be great if all businesses had this kind of break. And I think Europe does this a lot better than we do. But just the idea of just real downtime, and the business having downtime, not just, individual. So, I've always taken my vacations. I'm really good at that. But there's always something going on, and it's really busy and then you get back and it's overwhelming. And I took one day off a week, and I worked from home sometimes. And it just really, I feel very ready and refreshed. I'm excited about the new school year and all the things that come with it. I'm a little anxious because a lot more is going to be expected of me because I've been there a year now, and I keep saying I'm new, even though it feels like it's still. But so
you can't blame your predecessor anymore. I tend to think of that as that 6-month window of like,
yeah, exactly. But anyway, and I feel like my team is really ready too. They've been, being happy to have breaks too, but everybody feels really exciting. And we did a lot last year to kind of ready ourselves for this moment. So it's very cool.
Oh, that's very exciting. That's very cool. Yeah. I really appreciate your perspective about collective downtime, because of when you go, even the best of us who are committed to vacations, carry a little bit of that. What am I going to miss? What am I going to have to clean up when I get back? Who's going to need me and I won't be there for? That noise is still in your head. And then, of course, if you come back and the world has kept moving at its pace, you've got to catch up in a way that's really pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, there was one point in my career when I realized, okay, I'm at this stage of no one covers my shift while I'm gone. It does change the vacation perspective when you know that you are going to still have to get the work done. So it doesn't really matter that you were gone because the work is going to be there when you get back. So
that's interesting because it is true. And boy, there's how do I measure my leadership journey? You get to that point where no one can really do your job. That said, one of the things that later in my career I paid some attention to, and I know you did too, so I'm not saying I did, you didn't, just as a counterpoint to the no one can do my job, is explicitly asking someone who reports to me to step into that role as a stretch leadership development opportunity. And 9 times out of 10, they learned a lot, but they also hated it because they weren't, they didn't have what I have naturally by having been in that position. But
yeah, and I think I agree with that. I think those are opportunities, and certainly, in my out of office, I list if it's this person, if this, and I think it makes those folks a little nervous. But in essence, unless you're at the crux of some sort of major discovery in science or something, curing cancer or whatever, everything can wait. And that's another lesson of it, just a little tie-in to what we were talking about earlier, which is that thing I saw on Instagram, which I sent to you, which is you'll never feel ready. Ready is not a feeling, it's a decision. And I think that's kind of part of that is, deciding that everything's going to be okay, that you actually have what you need to be successful. And anyway, we'll talk a little more about that, I think.
Thank you for teeing that up. It's one of the things that, as I think about not only my leadership career, but also the people that I coach, when you're new in the job, you hold things really tightly because you have no depth perception. You literally don't know what's more important than something else, right? Like you have a stack of papers on your desk in the world where papers dominated, or you have a stack of emails and documents that you're supposed to be reading and sorting through. You don't know which ones to pay attention to first. Yeah. And then over time, you kind of get to, well, if they really need it, they're going to ping me, right? You learn this sort of easygoing, I'll focus on what I think I need to focus on. And if somebody needs something from me, they will let me know. I'm not alone in the landscape of navigating. And so the grip loosens, which of course is part of effective leadership too, right? Is sort of being ready in the flow state. But that being ready is, I can feel myself as you were reading that quote kind of going, yeah, you want to feel ready. Like there's a tightness to it. Mm-hmm. And it's not that. It's not that.
No, absolutely not. At this point, I want to say we do not have a guest today. It's just Susan and I talking. So I think we were realizing we didn't really tee that up. But so Susan and I are just going to have a conversation here today. It's one of our, we like to call them unplugged episodes, and not quite sure where the conversation's going to go, but hopefully it will be helpful.
I know where the conversation is going. We have topics we want to share with our listeners.
We definitely do. One of the things I wanted to just ask you is, I wanted to acknowledge this actually. We've been talking a lot about our aging parents and taking care of our aging parents. And I realized as I was doing some editing of one of our episodes, we've talked about it a couple times in our what we call banter at the beginning of each episode. And, it's all consuming. It really is. And I had a consultant working for me that was radio silent for 3 weeks, and I was expecting some deliverables, and it was starting to freak me out a little bit. What's going on? Are you okay? And she ended up having to deal with 3 different parents having issues all at the same time. And she's probably 10 years younger than me, I would say, at least. And so, part of that, they call it sandwich generation, where you've got responsibilities for younger folk and older folk. And it just, I have a lot of empathy and compassion for her because I'm going through similar things, and just how these forks in the road. I don't know exactly how to say it, but there's just these moments in time where, again, feeling ready is not really possible.
Yeah. I mean, we were chatting about this a little bit before we started recording. It's like, when we think about our careers and the next step, we want to feel ready for the next big job or the next big assignment. But if we take a step back and look around at our real lives, like what's happening in real time, day to day, there is always some shit that's happening that we are not, quote, ready for because we're not planning for it because we really don't want it to happen, right? Like an aging parent falls, or the car breaks down, or the dog barfs on the couch, like just to use really gross examples. But we're ready. Like those things happen, and we create the space and the time and the focus to deal with them. And I think it's really important. I think part of what I think we're teasing out here is this combination of readiness, blindness. Like I think we all carry this, ooh, I want to be a CEO, but do I have the right skills? And I don't have this experience or that experience on the job description. But if we take a step back and think about how we show up to our life, how we show up to problems that require attention, whether at work or at home, not just in the moment, but over time, that those are all skills that deploy not only in your life, but also directly at work.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the aging parent thing as, and maybe it's helpful to make it a cognitive experience as opposed to just the emotional one, because let's admit, aging parents pushes all the buttons in so many ways. It takes you back to your dynamic with your parents, which most of us feels like we're 7 or we're 12. And boy, those were never good ways to feel. And also that shift from suddenly you're more responsible for them than they are responsible for you, right? There's a lot in that. But from a pure cognitive perspective, it's like, okay, here's a problem. It's a problem that will persist. It has a trajectory. It will have ups and downs. How am I going to manage the situation? How am I going to manage the people? How am I going to manage myself? And one of the things that's been really helpful to me, and I know I said this in a previous episode, I found it really important to think about what was the ultimate value/feeling I wanted to bring to the situation of my aging parent. And I decided that it was really trying, because I'm imperfect, right? Trying to lead with love, trying to lead with empathy and compassion. And I shared that with my siblings who were like, wow, you actually thought about this? I'm like, yeah, because otherwise we'll get pissed off. We'll get impatient. We'll get so it doesn't keep us from having our feelings real in the moment, but it does guide how you navigate. And I think the same is true when you sit down and look at a work project. You're like, so what are my outcomes? How do I want this to be in the end? It's not just about, did I build it out properly, but did my team come along with me? Were there successes? Were there learnings?
Right.
Sorry, I'm a little bit on my leadership soapbox this morning, but it's so interesting to me how we look at something that's really hard and forget that we have a lot more resources and a lot resourcefulness inside us and skills inside us than we may think when we first look at the situation.
Well, I think the idea of managing the situation with your aging parent and your family and siblings and, whoever is in the lead, and there's always somebody in the lead. It might not be the same person all the time, but it's project management skills come into play, right? You have to be able to draw on those things that you've learned over time about what makes things successful. And I think, yes, emotions are always going to play into it, and much more with your parents than at work. But still, if you're thinking about what is the core end result we need here, the end result is we want success. We want people to feel valued. We want the project to be done well. And just like thinking about focusing on the process and the moment and not feeling so attached. And we talk about this a lot in coaching, to the outcome, right? So with this consultant I mentioned earlier, being absent, I had to pivot and decide. I had three projects that I had them working on. And I said, okay, what is the most important project? The most important project to me is not what's the most important project to the company. The company needs to be successful, and this person is going to help manage the audit. The audit is the most important, publicly facing. But there are two internal projects that I really wanted done because it was something I could say, look what we did. And the audit is, to me, is like, you just, it's not
You
sexy.
just gotta.
Yeah. So, but just, figuring out a way to catch up. Like this, let's put these things and really kind of taking a step back and saying, what's really important in this moment for the organization that I serve? So kind of back to your thing about leading with love with your mom is, what's the most important thing? The most important thing is that your mother is cared for and has a graceful last few years and feels, that there's value to life, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I'm putting words in your mouth, but those kinds of things. And so it is like getting out of your own way in some ways.
Yeah. And it's interesting how there's a couple corollaries here that are interesting. One is we're much better at articulating in practical terms the desired outcomes for a project at work, and a lot less comfortable, capable, whatever, at articulating it in our relationships. I remember my siblings being kind of, are you being all corporate? And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to narrow down the noise around what are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go?
Yeah. So, I think that I'm going to take from this conversation is that idea of helping my team not have to feel so ready all the time. And there was a situation that happened yesterday where my one of my employees came in hot and just and I was like, okay, this is okay. I get that you're worried about these things, and I get that, but these things were the case yesterday. You just discovered them, and so you're anxious about them, but we don't have to solve this today. Mm-hmm. And just helping him kind of get into the understanding of we're going to be fine. It's going to get there, and we don't have to do everything today. And I think the reason I could say that to him is because I recognize myself in that and getting worked up about things that if you take that step back, like we've been talking about, you get a little bit of a different perspective on, wait a minute, what's really important in this moment? And not always good at it, but I think it's interesting learning.
Yeah, the thing I'm hearing you talk about is the pause. I talk about this a lot with my clients, and it's something I'm trying to use for myself in just as a human being in all areas of my life, is that beat where you pause, you take a breath. Your thoughts can go lots of places, like what's true in this moment, or how am I feeling, and what do I want to do about it? But it's the pause, little space between whatever the stimulus was and the reaction. And it's so hard. It's so hard, especially in a fast-paced world. Like, we're kind of expected to be like TikTok, fast clips, move on.
Well, and I'm thinking about when you're talking about with your siblings, and you have a different situation than I do in that all my siblings are in one area of the world. Your siblings are closer to your mother and might be seeing things, physically, seeing things and reacting and wanting you to join in their reaction, similar to what happened with my workmate yesterday. And you can say, can have perspective because you're not sitting there looking at it. Also, taking that moment to really listen to their need to just do whatever they need to do in that moment. And then, leading with love again, for them, and saying, wow, that sounds really hard. And can we take a step back and get some perspective?
That's a really good example, and an actual take that I want to share, which was my brother and sister. I don't want to say they were coming in hot with me, but they were like, this is a real problem. This is a real problem. And I wasn't seeing it. I would talk to my mom, and she was sharp as a tack. So I finally said to my sister on one of our group calls, I said, I don't experience her that way. Can you tell me what you see and hear that contradicts my experience just as a better flavor. And so my brother and her like popped in, we'll be talking to her and she'll clock out, right? Like, so, and then my sister said something really interesting. She said, when she has the phone in her hand, she is sharp as a tack. I've watched her go from not really clear on what she's trying to do sitting in the living room to being on the phone with someone and having complete cogent thoughts and chain of conversation. So something about that brings out that part of her. I wasn't seeing that.
Yeah.
So by the time I dropped in for a couple weeks to kind of get the lay of the land and work with my siblings, I was like, oh my God, there's urgency here. And that, so you're absolutely right. There's who's experiencing what and how do you get a picture that's reliable? And it's the same thing. Let's take it back to the office. If you get all your data from the person who wants to look good to you, you're not going to have the full story of how the project's going. Right.
Yep. Exactly. So I want to say a couple things. We are, I believe, if not over, we are right at 2,000 downloads of our 3.5 seasons. And I just think that is so cool. And I want to make sure we mention that. And it's, again, we talked about, we weren't really into this for the numbers, but that sounds pretty cool. So.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And I'm holding in my head colleagues of mine who've been doing a podcast for 7 or 10 years, and they're like 100,000 downloads or 1 million listens. And I'm just like, okay, fine. You be you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just having a good time. So that's the important part. I do want to check in and just say, like, what's going on? What are you doing? What are you working on?
Yeah, thank you for that. There's something I want to talk about a little bit, but I will first reflect on the arc of my summer, which, as you know, like I'm supposed to come back and be in San Francisco for 3 to 4 or 5 months, depending on the given year. And I have currently been back in San Francisco for 2 weeks, which is the longest I have been in San Francisco since returning from South Africa in May. It has been like a week here, a week there, and not all of it like under duress and not all of it visiting my mother, but a fair amount of that too. It's just been disruptive. And I'm a person who craves routine. I like knowing where I'm going to sleep and how I'm going to get my exercise in my day and, you know, what the day looks like. And so it's been challenging to kind of be living a little bit out of a suitcase and trying to remember, okay, where am I this week and what's my primary focus? And I find myself, unfortunately, maybe this is just information overload in my brain, I really can't hold two thoughts. Like if I'm on holiday with my family, like I was a couple weeks ago up in Port Angeles, Washington, I can't be thinking about the work that I've left on my desk and had hoped to iterate a little bit while on vacation. Nope, can't do it. Just can't.
That's good, I think. I wonder if that's progress.
It is, in a way, it's progress, but in a way, it's also like I just don't, my bandwidth has narrowed this summer. And I think it's a direct consequence of the complexity of my personal life, which is worrying about my mom and my nieces and that kind of thing. It just makes
interesting. It's just interesting because when I first met you, you were living out of a suitcase a lot. Like you traveled for work so much, and that was my experience of you. And I see you as a person who is a bit nomadic. Yeah.
And you know, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that reflection, because maybe me noticing my craving for routine is a lifelong response to, I mean, I had a nomadic upbringing. My work took me places, you know, granted it wasn't global travel, but it sure was US travel. What I would like to share with you and our listeners is that what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks pretty intensively, and I'm pretty excited about it, very excited about it. As you know, Juliet, I offer a retreat in South Africa in November every year. And this year I decided to invite a peer, a leadership coach from the UK to work with me on it. So that's been a fascinating process of, I had this vision, I want to change up the vision, and now how do we co-create something that's sort of mostly built? So it's retrofitting. We talk about project management and leadership and interpersonal experiences all kind of coming together. Yeah. But what I want to say is this. The retreat this year is explicitly a leadership retreat. It's a leadership development experience, woven through with obviously the personal growth and insight and support that you would expect when you go on a retreat. It's not a curriculum-based retreat, but it does articulate when we do an activity, like when we go on safari, part of it is like, whoa, animals, cool. But part of it is look at the real life systems around you, and what are you learning? And look at the different animals and the way they deal with survival. Are they a pack? Are they solo? Are they cooperative? Is there an alpha male at the top? Is there an alpha female at the top? I mean, there's so much mining to be done. So at the risk of going on and on about that, I'm really jazzed about how we are taking the core frame of the retreat and mining it in the same way that our conversation today was trying to do, some leadership concepts so that it's more tangible to people who want to come on this retreat. And of course, we want them to be able to go to their boss and say, this is a retreat, it's a leadership development experience, and I want the company to pay for it.
Right.
Which is some dancing to do in terms of web copy. But so I've been working on that, and I'm really excited for a couple of reasons. One is this is going to be an amazing experience for senior leaders and executives. It evolves me as a leader in terms of cooperating with another leadership coach. And ultimately for the participants, it's two for the price of one. Like, she's really different than me, but she's also a very skilled leadership coach. Mm-hmm. And I just think, what a great experiment.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
I invite my listeners to go to my website, which is in the show notes. You can find it really easily, and go have a look at the retreat. It's in November, from 7 to 14 November 7th to 14th in the North American way that we do dates. And enrollment is open. We're recruiting right now.
Oh, good. Oh, exciting. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
how many people will you hold it to?
Oh, good question. It's topped out at 6.
Okay. So that's really nice. Yeah.
It's an intimate retreat, which means that there's, pretty good coaching to coach to participant ratio is really good.
Yeah. I think you had this retreat last year. You had a retreat last year.
Yes.
And it was super successful. And it took a long time for it to evolve. I remember just you kind of going through different iterations and trying this and trying that, and it coming together last November, and how much it changed you in a way. And that you experienced something that kind of surprised you about your own growth and how you kind of changed over the time of building it and delivering it. So very cool. I'm excited to see how this one goes. So
yeah, and of course now I'm in the worry phase. Ring my fingers. Who's coming? Come on, let's get bodies in the seats.
Yeah.
But I also think what's interesting is, and I'm learning this. I signed myself up for this woman who does sort of this accountability around reaching out and following up with your potential clients. Mm-hmm. And her philosophy is, most of us stop and look at our content. What is my offer? Have I shaped it properly? We go and create a new thing because we think that's what's going to draw new people. When most of the time we aren't doing the follow-up on the existing thing. And so this has just been so crystallized for me that the fortune is in the follow-up. That you invite somebody to look at something, and then if you never reach back out to them, how are you going to know that they've said no to the experience, no to the content, no to you, or they're just holding it and kind of need a little nudge to have the conversation. Right. So it's, as I think about the retreat, and why did this thought occur to me? As I think about the retreat and its evolution, I had to run the retreat the way I did last year, which was more of a personal experience. And then realized that what I wanted to do was evolve it into this leadership thing. That's probably the direction it was headed from the very beginning. Yep. But you don't get there by automatically saying it needs to be this. You get there by seeing what you want and what you need, and remembering that people respond to frequent invitations. So
yes, and
go ahead.
Yeah, and no doesn't necessarily mean anything personal. and mostly doesn't mean anything personal.
It's like the weather.
No, the weather is personal.
Anyway, thanks for asking. I did want to put a plug in for my retreat. Happy to talk with anyone about whether that's a good fit for them, how to sell it to their bosses, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. I think that's an important part of it is helping people sell it.
Yeah.
Is a really key part of when you're doing anything in leadership growth. Is I know it's hard for me sometimes to approach and say, I'd really like to do this thing that's kind of outside the box and maybe more expensive than you were planning on, but is going to be life-changing, and I get to bring that back to you. And that's pretty valuable to the company. So it's good. Well, with that, I'm going to just say this has been fun. I hope people got something out of this conversation. I really like the idea, and I'm holding this of not worrying so much about feeling ready, but just doing it.
Yeah. I think the readiness comes with the action, right? Like we take the action and then we go, oh, I did the thing. I must have been ready. Isn't there a Latin phrase, if so, because then I forget something ergo
something like that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Great. Juliet, it's been wonderful chatting with you again. I love these unplugs. I know we have at least one or two more to do for this season. We'll see when we pop those into the roundup. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
We're so glad you've joined us for this episode of Secrets of the C-Suite, the podcast. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks. In the meantime, please tell your friends and coworkers about us, and be sure to follow, subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed listening. Secrets of the C-Suite is produced by Juliet Clothier, Susan Sutherland, and Brian Clothier. Original music is by Brian Clothier, and the podcast is inspired by leaders like you.